The champagne flute slipped from my mother's manicured fingers and shattered against the marble floor of our Connecticut estate, as the projection screen behind me blazed with her own voice, cold and calculating, discussing how they would declare me mentally unstable to steal my inheritance. I stood there in my crimson revenge dress microphone in hand, watching the colour drain from my father's face, as 200 of Connecticut's elite witnessed the Jameson family's carefully constructed facade crumble in real time. But to understand how I got here, how I became the woman who would orchestrate the most spectacular takedown at a Christmas party in Greenwich history, I need to take you back to where it all began. Before you hear the rest of this story, if you love tales of justice and transformation, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next will blow your mind. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation. Now, let me tell you how I went from being the family disappointment to the architect of their downfall. 3 days before that fateful Christmas Eve, I was still Ava Jameson, the forgettable daughter, the one whose name was whispered with a dismissive sigh at country club luncheons. I drove my beat-up Honda Civic through the iron gates of the Jameson estate, my stomach knotting the way it always did when I returned to this prison of privilege. The December air was sharp and cold, but nothing compared to the chill that awaited me inside those pristine walls. I had barely stepped into the marble foyer when my mother, Kimberly Jameson, appeared at the top of the grand staircase. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask about my drive from Brooklyn. Instead, she looked at my wool coat, the one I had saved 3 months to buy, and her lip curled in disgust. Without a word, she snapped her fingers at Maria, our housekeeper, and said, "Remove that thing from the entrance hall. It's making the whole space look cheap." Maria's eyes met mine with sympathy as she took my coat, and I felt that familiar burn of humiliation crawl up my neck. The dining room that evening was a study in cold opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the long mahogany table where my family sat like judges at a tribunal. My father, Robert Jameson, sat at the head, his silver hair perfectly styled, his eyes cold and assessing. My mother perched to his right, her tennis bracelet catching the light with every precise movement. Rachel, my older sister, and Adam, my brother, sat across from each other, both wearing expressions of barely concealed amusement at my expense. Dinner had barely begun when my father set down his wineglass and fixed me with that look I knew so well, the one that said I was about to be evaluated and found wanting. "Ava, your mother and I have been discussing your situation. You're 32 years old and still playing with beads in that hovel in Brooklyn. When exactly do you plan to contribute something meaningful to this family?" His voice was smooth, cultivated, and sharp as a blade. I opened my mouth to respond, to tell him about the commission I had just completed, about the gallery showing interest in my work, but Rachel cut me off with a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "Oh, Dad, you know Ava's little hobby jewellery isn't going anywhere. Remember last year when she gave us those friendship bracelets? I think mine is still in my junk drawer." She paused, then added with mock sweetness, "Actually, I think I gave it to my dog as a chew toy." Adam snorted into his scotch. At least the dog appreciated it. My mother dabbed at her lips with her napkin, the gesture somehow conveying profound disappointment. "Darling, we're just concerned. Tomorrow night we have very important guests coming for Christmas Eve dinner. Lucas Sterling will be here. You know, the CEO of Sterling Luxury Group. Your father has been cultivating this relationship for months. We simply cannot have you embarrassing us with your arts and crafts talk." I felt the familiar weight settling over me, the suffocating pressure to be smaller, quieter, less. But something flickered inside me, a small flame of defiance. They didn't know about the email I had received that morning, the one from Silver and Bloom, one of the most prestigious jewellery houses in New York, asking to meet with me about an exclusive design contract. I had not told them because I knew exactly what would happen. They would find a way to diminish it, to take it from me, or worse, to take credit for it. "I'll try not to embarrass you," I said quietly, and I saw the satisfaction in my mother's eyes at my submission. Rachel reached for the wine bottle, and as she did, her hand caught the edge of my leather portfolio, the one containing my latest designs. The burgundy wine arced through the air in what I swear was slow motion, splashing across my sketches, bleeding into the paper, destroying hours of work. Rachel gasped theatrically, her hand flying to her mouth, but her eyes were dancing with malice. "Oh my God! Ava, I'm so sorry, but honestly, it probably doesn't matter. I mean, who's going to buy those anyway? I stared at the ruined sketches at the wine spreading like blood across my work, and something inside me went very still. I excused myself to get towels, my hand shaking, not with sadness, but with a rage so pure it felt like clarity. I was walking past my father's study when I heard voices low and urgent. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, I could see my father's desk, his computer screen illuminated in the dim room. I should have kept walking. I should have gone to get those towels and returned to pretend nothing was wrong. But I heard my name, and I stopped. "The PowerPoint is ready for tomorrow night," Rachel was saying, and I could hear the cruel satisfaction in her voice. "I've compiled all the footage we need." Ava crying after Mum criticised her outfit last Thanksgiving. Ava's voice raised when Adam goaded her about her failed relationship. With the right editing and music, she'll look completely unhinged. "And the therapist's letters." That was my mother's voice, cool and businesslike. "Dr. Morrison has agreed to sign the evaluation site unseen," my father replied. "For the right price, of course. Once we present this at the party tomorrow in front of witnesses, we can initiate the conservatorship proceedings. She'll have no choice but to sign over the trust fund." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. My grandmother's trust fund, the one she had left me specifically, with instructions that it be used to pursue my dreams. The trust fund my parents couldn't legally touch unless I was declared incompetent. Adam's voice joined the chorus. "And if she refuses to sign?" There was a pause, and then my father's voice cold as winter. "Then we proceed with having her committed to Serenity Hills, 72-hour psychiatric hold. After that, with the right legal team, we can extend it indefinitely. By the time she gets out, if she gets out, the money will already be securing our investments. The company needs this capital injection, or we're finished." "It's really for her own good," my mother added, and the ease with which she lied, the smoothness of her self-deception made my blood run cold. "Ava has always been unstable. This is just us being responsible parents." I stood there in the hallway, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. My family, the people who were supposed to love me, protect me, were planning to rob me of my freedom, my money and my sanity, all to cover up my father's failing business ventures. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and pressed record, then held it near the crack in the door. For the next 10 minutes, I captured everything. The details of their plan, the fake psychiatric evaluation, the conspiracy with Dr. Morrison, my father's admission that his company was on the verge of bankruptcy due to his risky investments, and worse, that he had been committing tax fraud for years. They discussed every detail, never once considering that I might be listening, that I might be anything other than the compliant broken daughter they had spent years creating. When I finally crept away, I went straight to my old bedroom. Not to pack sentimental items, but to the closet where I knew my father kept duplicate files. I had watched him enough times over the years to know his safe combination, our family's founding year, because he was predictable in his arrogance. Inside, I found exactly what I needed. Documents showing offshore accounts, falsified tax returns, emails, discussing the shell corporations he used to hide assets. I photographed everything with my phone, my hands steady now with purpose. Then I noticed something else, a leather folio containing my grandmother's actual will, the one I had never been shown. I opened it and felt tears sting my eyes. She had known. My grandmother had known what they were like. Her letter to me tucked inside was dated just weeks before her death. "My dearest Ava," it read in her elegant script, "if you are reading this, then I am gone, and I suspect your parents have not been honest with you. I have established your trust fund with ironclad protections because I know what they are capable of. The money transfers to you automatically on your 32nd birthday, which has already passed as I write this. They cannot touch it unless you are declared legally incompetent, which is why I suspect they will try exactly that. Do not let them break you, my darling girl. You have more strength than you know. The family company is failing because your father is a fool with money, and your mother is a social climber who spends what they don't have. They will try to use you. Don't let them. I have also left you something else, my shares in Jameson Enterprises, enough to outvote your father if it comes to that. My lawyer, Eleanor Hartley, has the documents. Use them when you're ready. I love you. Be brave. I sat on the floor of my father's study, my grandmother's letter clutched in my hands, and for the first time in my life I felt something other than despair. I felt rage, yes, but also clarity, power. They had underestimated me for the last time. I left the estate that night, not through the front door, but through the service entrance, my car packed not with clothes, but with evidence. I drove back to Brooklyn with the windows down, despite the cold, needing the sharp air to keep me focused to remind me this was real. My best friend Mia was waiting when I got home to our shared apartment in Williamsburg. She took one look at my face and put on the kettle. What happened? I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a torrent, and with each revelation her expression grew darker. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, then she said, "So what are we going to do about it?" "We?" I asked. "You think I'm letting you go through this alone, Ava? These people tried to have you committed to steal your money. We're not just stopping them, we're destroying them." The next morning, I called Eleanor Hartley, my grandmother's lawyer. She remembered me and invited me to her office immediately. Eleanor was in her 60s, sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued, and when I showed her what I had found, what I had recorded, she smiled like a shark scenting blood. "Your grandmother was right about you," she said. "You are stronger than they know. Now let's talk about what we're going to do with all this." We spent hours going through everything. Eleanor confirmed that the trust fund had indeed transferred to me automatically on my birthday, that my parents had no legal access to it whatsoever. She also revealed the extent of my grandmother's gift. I now owned 40% of Jameson Enterprises. My father only owned 45%, with the remaining 15% split among minor shareholders. If I could get just 6% to vote with me, I could remove my father from his position. "But that's not what I want," I told her. "I don't want the company. I never did." "Then what do you want?" Eleanor asked. I thought about all the years of being made to feel small, worthless, invisible. I thought about Rachel spilling wine on my work with that cruel gleam in her eye. I thought about my mother throwing away my coat like it was garbage. I thought about my father's voice coldly discussing having me committed, like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. "I want them to know what it feels like," I said finally. "I want them to lose everything in front of everyone who matters to them, the way they have spent years making me feel like nothing in front of everyone I knew." Eleanor's smile widened. "Then we'd better get to work. You said they're having a Christmas party tomorrow night, with 200 guests from Connecticut society, including Lucas Sterling." "Perfect," Eleanor said. "Let's give them a Christmas they'll never forget." That afternoon my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. "Ms. Jameson, this is Catherine Wells from Silver and Bloom. We've been trying to reach you about your portfolio. We'd like to meet with you today, if possible. We're prepared to offer you an exclusive contract as our featured designer." I looked at Mia, who was watching me expectantly. "Yes," I said, Yes, I can meet today." 2 hours later, I was sitting in a sleek office in Midtown, across from Catherine Wells and her team. They spread my designs across the table. Pieces I had poured my heart into during years of being told I was wasting my time. "These are extraordinary," Catherine said. "Raw, emotional, with a sophistication that's rare in emerging designers. We want to launch a signature collection with you. Full creative control, marketing support, and a 3-year contract with a guaranteed minimum buy of $2 million per year." The number echoed in my head. $2 million per year, more than my trust fund, more than anything my parents had ever given me. And I had earned it myself with the talent they had dismissed, the passion they had mocked. "There's as one condition," Catherine continued. "We need you to be available for Fashion Week in February, and we'd like to announce the partnership at a major event. We were thinking New Year's, but if you have something sooner..." "I do," I said, an idea forming. "How do you feel about Christmas Eve?" When I left Silver and Bloom, I didn't go home. I went shopping. With the advance they had given me and my own savings, I bought a dress, not just any dress, but a gown that cost more than my car, a crimson silk creation that fit me like it had been painted on, that made me look powerful, dangerous, beautiful. I bought heels that added 4 inches to my height. I booked a makeup artist and hairstylist for the next evening. Then I went to a tech store and bought what I needed to execute my plan. Mia met me there, and together we worked through the evening, compiling the video, editing the audio, creating the presentation that would blow apart my family's carefully constructed lies. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying their words in my head, the casual cruelty, the calculated malice. But I also kept hearing my grandmother's voice in her letter. Be brave. Christmas Eve dawned clear and cold, the kind of perfect winter day that Connecticut does so well, all pristine snow and crystalline air. I spent the morning at a salon being transformed. When the stylist was done, I barely recognized myself. My dark hair fell in glossy waves, my makeup was dramatic and flawless, and when I slipped into that red dress, I looked like someone who could command a room, someone who could destroy empires. Mia whistled when she saw me. They're not going to know what hit them. That's the plan, I said. We arrived at the estate at 7, fashionably late. Mia was posing as the backup AV technician, a role Eleanor had arranged. She went in through the service entrance with the equipment, while I waited, letting my family wonder where I was letting them panic. Inside the estate, I knew 200 guests were mingling. Connecticut's elite old money families, business moguls, socialites, and Lucas Sterling, the man my father was desperately trying to impress. My parents would be playing the perfect hosts, while Rachel and Adam circulated with champagne and cruel smiles, and somewhere hidden ready to be deployed was their presentation, their manufactured evidence of my instability. At 7:30, I walked through the front doors. The entrance hall fell silent. I stood in the doorway, snowflakes melting in my hair, and watched my mother's face go pale. My father's champagne glass paused halfway to his lips. Rachel's mouth literally fell open. But it was Lucas Sterling who moved first. He was tall, distinguished, maybe 40, with dark eyes that held intelligence and something else, recognition. He crossed the room to me, and I realised with a start that he knew exactly who I was. "Ms. Jameson," he said, taking my hand and brushing his lips across my knuckles in an old-fashioned gesture that somehow didn't feel dated. "I've been hoping to meet you. I've seen your work. You're extraordinarily talented." Behind him, I saw my father's face flush with confusion and anger. Lucas Sterling wasn't supposed to know me. Lucas Sterling was supposed to be his business connection, his salvation. But here he was, greeting me like I was the guest of honor. "Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice steady, "I'm so glad you could make it." My mother recovered first, gliding over with her practiced social smile firmly in place. "Ava, darling, you look lovely. Mr. Sterling, I see you've met our youngest daughter. She dabbles in jewellery design as a little hobby." "Hobby?" Lucas's eyebrow rose. "Mrs. Jameson, your daughter is about to become one of the most sought-after designers in the industry. Silver and Bloom just signed her to an exclusive contract." "I know, because I've been trying to convince her to collaborate with Sterling Luxury Group as well." The look on my mother's face was almost worth everything I had been through. "Almost. Well," my father said, materialising at my mother's elbow, his smile tight. "This is wonderful news, Ava. We'll have to discuss this as a family." The emphasis on family was clear, a reminder that I was supposed to be theirs to control. "Actually, Dad, I think we should discuss it now, in front of everyone." I looked around the room at the assembled guests, all watching this little drama unfold with barely concealed interest. "After all, you did say you wanted me to stop embarrassing the family." My father's eyes narrowed. He knew something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. He gestured to Rachel, who nodded, and started moving toward the study where I knew the computer controlling the main presentation screen was set up. "Why don't we move to the ballroom for dinner?" my mother announced to the crowd, her voice bright and brittle. "We have a lovely presentation prepared." The guests filed into the ballroom, that enormous space with its soaring ceilings and glittering chandeliers. At one end was a stage, a raised platform where my father would give his annual Christmas address, and behind it, a massive projection screen. I saw Rachel slip behind the stage laptop, in hand, ready to start their presentation. What she didn't see was Mia dressed in the standard black of an AV tech intercepting her offering to help set up since the system was being finicky. Rachel, too arrogant to suspect anything, handed over the laptop. My father took the stage, tapping the microphone. The room quieted. Thank you all for joining us on this special evening. As is our tradition, I like to take a moment to talk about family, about the bonds that tie us together, about the responsibility we have to care for one another. I felt Lucas's presence beside me solid and supportive. He leaned down and whispered, "Whatever you're planning, I'm here if you need backup." I looked up at him surprised. "Why would you help me?" "Because I knew your grandmother," he said quietly. "She told me to watch out for you, said you were going to need an ally when the time came." I didn't understand what she meant until about 5 minutes ago. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. Not yet. I couldn't cry yet. On stage, my father was building to his point. "Sometimes," he said, his voice heavy with false emotion, "the most loving thing we can do is acknowledge when someone we love is struggling, when they need help. They can't ask for themselves." This was it. This was when he would reveal their fabricated evidence, when they would paint me as mentally unstable in front of everyone who mattered. I caught Mia's eye across the room. She nodded. "And so," my father continued, "it is with a heavy heart that I must address my daughter Ava's condition." He gestured, and the screen behind him illuminated. But what appeared wasn't the edited footage of me crying, wasn't the manipulated videos they had prepared. Instead, the screen showed my father's study, showed my father, mother, Rachel and Adam gathered around his desk, and the audio crackled to life with perfect clarity. "The PowerPoint is ready for tomorrow night. I've compiled all the footage we need." The room went dead silent. My father spun around, staring at the screen in horror, as his own voice filled the ballroom. "Once we present this at the party tomorrow in front of witnesses, we can initiate the conservatorship proceedings. She'll have no choice but to sign over the trust fund." Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw Mrs. Patterson, the biggest gossip in Greenwich, pull out her phone. My mother had gone white as paper. The video continued methodically, laying out every detail of their scheme. The fake psychiatric evaluation, the plan to have me committed, my father's admission about the tax fraud, about the failing company, and through it all, their casual cruelty, their complete lack of remorse or love for their own daughter. When my mother's voice came through the speakers saying, "It's really for her own good. Ava has always been unstable." I saw several guests actually recoil. My father lunged for the stage, trying to reach the computer, but Lucas Sterling moved faster, stepping into his path. "I think we all need to see this through," Lucas said, his voice carrying authority. The presentation continued with slides Mia had prepared showing the documents. I had found the evidence of fraud, the offshore accounts, the shell corporations. Every dirty secret, every lie laid bare in high definition. When it finally ended, the silence was deafening. 200 of Connecticut's most influential people had just witnessed the complete destruction of the Jameson family's reputation. My father stood frozen on stage, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. My mother had sunk into a chair, her head in her hands. Rachel and Adam were nowhere to be seen, having apparently fled. I walked to the stage, my heels clicking on the marble floor, the only sound in that vast room. Someone handed me the microphone, maybe Lucas, maybe Mia, I wasn't sure. I looked out at the sea of faces, saw the shock, the disgust, the morbid fascination. "You all heard my father talk about family," I said, my voice steady and clear, "about the bonds that tie us together, about responsibility. Let me tell you what family meant in this house. Family meant being a tool, a means to an end, a problem to be managed. For 32 years, I tried to be the daughter they wanted. I tried to be smaller, quieter, less. I tried to earn love that was never going to be freely given. I turned to look at my parents. My father's face was purple with rage or shame, I couldn't tell which. My mother still wouldn't meet my eyes. But here's what they didn't count on. My grandmother, the matriarch of this family, knew exactly what they were. She protected me in ways I didn't understand until recently. So let me share some news, the kind my parents would have shared if they were honest people. I smiled, and I knew it wasn't kind. 3 days ago, I turned 32. That's important because it's when my grandmother's trust fund automatically transferred to my name. My parents can't touch it no matter what they do. Yesterday, I signed a 3-year exclusive contract with Silver and Bloom as their featured designer worth $6 million. And this morning, I met with the board of Jameson Enterprises. I pulled out a folder from where Mia was holding my clutch. My grandmother left me 40% of Jameson Enterprises. My father has 45%. But this morning, 3 minor shareholders representing 8% of the company agreed to vote with me. That means I now control the majority of Jameson Enterprises. The room erupted in whispers. My father's face had gone from purple to grey. I'm not interested in running a failing company built on fraud, I continued. So I've arranged to sell my shares to Sterling Luxury Group, who will be conducting a full audit and restructuring. I looked at Lucas, who nodded confirmation. My father will be removed as CEO effective immediately. The company will be cleaned up, the fraud will be reported to the appropriate authorities, and the employees, who had nothing to do with this, will be protected. My father found his voice finally a strangled shout. You can't do this, you ungrateful little bitch, and after everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I repeated, my voice like ice. You mean like planning to have me committed to a psychiatric facility to steal my inheritance? Like spending years telling me I was worthless? Like making me feel like I had to earn the basic respect and love that should have been my birthright? I shook my head. No, Dad, this is me doing something for myself. For the first time in my life. I turned back to the crowd. I'm sure you're all wondering what kind of person airs their family's dirty laundry like this. The answer is someone who's done being silently destroyed. My parents taught me that appearances matter more than truth, that reputation matters more than integrity. So I'm taking away the only things they ever actually valued, their reputation and their money. My mother finally looked up, tears streaming down her face, and for a moment, just a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. Then she opened her mouth. Ava, please, I'm your mother. We can fix this. We only wanted what was best for you. We love you. The ease of her lies, even now, even after being exposed completely, was breathtaking. You know what, Mum? I said. I actually believe that you believe that. I think you've told yourself that lie so many times that you think it's true. But here's the thing. This isn't macaroni art from elementary school that you can throw away when I'm not looking. This is my life. This is my career. This is my future. And the price of your lies, your cruelty, your greed, is that you get to spend the rest of your lives knowing that the daughter you tried to destroy is the one who ended up destroying you. I set the microphone down on the stage and walked away. The crowd parted before me like the Red Sea. I heard whispers, gasps, even a few murmurs of approval, but I didn't stop. I walked straight to the entrance hall where Mia was waiting with my coat, the one my mother had dismissed as cheap. Lucas Sterling caught up with us at the door. That was the most spectacular thing I've ever witnessed, he said. Your grandmother would be proud. You really knew her? I asked. She was my mentor when I was starting out. She was brilliant, ruthless when she needed to be, and fiercely protective of the people she loved. She talked about you constantly, worried about leaving you alone with them. I promised her I'd help if you ever needed it. He handed me a business card. Call me after the holidays. I meant what I said about wanting to collaborate. Your work is extraordinary, and I'd like to support it if you'll let me. I took the card feeling something warm bloom in my chest, hope, maybe, or possibility. Thank you, I said, for being there tonight. Any time, he said, and I could tell he meant it. Mia and I walked out into the cold December night. Behind us, we could hear the chaos erupting, raised voices, the sounds of a family imploding, a dynasty crumbling. Snow was falling again, soft and clean, and I tilted my face up to feel it on my skin. Where to? Mia asked. Home, I said. Our actual home. We drove back to Brooklyn to our cramped apartment with its radiators that clanked and its view of the neighbouring building, and it felt like returning to a sanctuary. Mia ordered pizza while I got out of the designer dress and into my favourite worn sweatpants and oversized sweater. When the pizza arrived, we ate it straight from the box sitting on the floor with our backs against the couch and turned on the TV. The news was already breaking. "Financial scandal rocks Greenwich family," the anchor said, and there was footage of the estate of guests leaving in droves of my father being escorted out by what looked like federal agents. Eleanor had apparently moved fast. I reached for the remote and turned off the TV. "I don't need to see it," I said. Mia handed me another slice of pizza. "How do you feel?" I thought about it, really thought about it. I didn't feel triumphant exactly, or vindicated though. Maybe those would come later. What I felt was lighter, like I had been carrying a weight for so long. I had forgotten it was there and now it was gone. I felt free. "I feel like I can breathe," I said finally. The next morning was Christmas, and I woke up to my phone buzzing incessantly. Messages, calls, emails, all from people I hadn't heard from in years, journalists wanting interviews, my siblings trying to reach me, my mother calling over and over. I blocked the numbers I needed to block, ignored the rest, and went to make coffee. Mia emerged from her room looking bleary-eyed. "Merry Christmas," she said. "Merry Christmas," I replied, handing her a mug. We spent the day in pajamas, watching old movies and eating leftover pizza, so it was the best Christmas I could remember. No pressure, no performance, no pretending to be someone I wasn't. Just peace. The days that followed were a whirlwind. The media had a field day with the Jameson scandal. My father was charged with multiple counts of tax fraud and faced potential prison time. My mother and siblings weren't charged, but their social standing was obliterated. The country club revoked their membership. Former friends wouldn't return their calls. They lost everything they cared about, just as I had intended. Eleanor called to tell me that my father's lawyers had tried to contest the stock sale, but it was airtight. Lucas Sterling's team had taken over Jameson Enterprises and were implementing massive reforms. The company might actually survive once it was stripped of my father's corruption. I threw myself into my work with Silver and Bloom. The collection I designed was raw and emotional pieces that told stories of breaking and becoming, of darkness and light, of surviving and thriving. When we showed at Fashion Week in February, the response was overwhelming. Critics called it brave, honest, transformative. Lucas Sterling did indeed reach out about collaboration, and we began working on a capsule collection for his luxury group. But more than that, he became a friend, someone who understood the weight of family expectation, the burden of a legacy, and the courage it took to choose your own path. Months passed. Spring came to New York, bringing with it new growth, new possibilities. My apartment was filled with sketches and prototypes, with the tools of a trade I had been told was worthless, but that had saved me. I was making more money than I had ever imagined, but more than that, I was happy. I was creating work I believed in, building a life I actually wanted to live. One day, in April, I got a letter. It was from my mother, pages of cramped handwriting. I almost threw it away unopened, but something made me read it. It was full of justifications, explanations, apologies that didn't sound sincere because they were hedged with excuses. She wanted to meet for coffee to talk to see if we could rebuild our relationship. I sat with the letter for a long time, feeling the old familiar tug of obligation, of guilt, of hope, that maybe this time would be different. But then I remembered standing in that hallway, listening to them plan my destruction with such casual cruelty. I remembered the wine spilling across my sketches, my mother throwing away my coat, a lifetime of being made to feel small. I wrote back just one sentence. "I wish you well, but I don't wish you back in my life." It felt final and it felt right. Life continued to unfold in ways I couldn't have predicted. The design work flourished. I moved into a bigger studio space, hired an assistant, started teaching workshops for young designers. I dated occasionally, nothing serious, but I was learning what it felt like to be valued, to be respected, to be wanted for who I actually was, rather than who I could be molded into being. On the anniversary of that Christmas Eve, I hosted my own party, a small gathering of real friends in my Brooklyn apartment. Mia was there, of course, and Eleanor, who had become a mentor and friend. Lucas came bringing champagne and stories about the fashion industry that made us all laugh. There were designers, I had met artists from my neighbourhood, people who knew me as Ava, the creator, not Ava, the disappointment. We toasted to new beginnings, to found family, to the courage it takes to walk away from people who hurt you even when they're supposed to love you. And as I looked around the room at these people who chose to be in my life, who supported me without agenda, who celebrated my success without jealousy, I realised something profound. I had spent so many years trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it, that I had almost missed the love that was freely offered by people who actually mattered. I had been so focused on fitting into a family that didn't want me, that I had almost failed to see the family I could build for myself. The journey from that hallway where I had stood listening to my family plot against me to this moment, surrounded by genuine love and respect, had been terrifying and painful and absolutely necessary. I had learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. That sometimes love means knowing when to stop trying, when to choose yourself, when to burn down the life you thought you wanted, in order to build the one you actually needed. My name is Ava Jameson, and I am a designer, an artist, a survivor, and most importantly, I am free. I am no longer defined by the people who tried to break me. I am defined by how I put myself back together, piece by piece, sketch by sketch, choice by choice, into someone I'm actually proud to be. The Jameson estate still stands in Connecticut, but is up for sale now, seized as part of my father's legal troubles. I drove past it once just to see how I would feel. I felt nothing. No longing, no sadness, just a mild curiosity about who would buy it, who would fill those cold rooms with their own stories. That house had never been my home. Home was my cramped studio apartment where the radiators clank and the neighbours are noisy and my designs cover every surface. Home was the life I built from the ashes of the one I burned down. If you're reading this, if you're hearing my story, I want you to know something. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You are not obligated to sacrifice your dreams, your peace, your sanity, or your future for people who wouldn't do the same for you, even if they're family, especially if they're family. The hardest walk you'll ever take is walking away from people who don't value you, but I promise you, it's worth it. On the other side of that walk is a life that's actually yours, not one you're performing for an audience that will never applaud. There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, making the breaks part of the object's history rather than something to hide. The piece is considered more beautiful for having been broken. That's what I've become, a person whose breaks and repairs are visible, golden, beautiful in their own way. I am not who I was before that Christmas Eve, and I wouldn't want to be. That girl was smaller, quieter, less. I am more authentic, more powerful, more whole, more myself. So here's my question for you. What would you do if you discovered your family was plotting against you? Would you stay and try to fix it, or would you burn it all down and build something new? Have you ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to love you? How did you find the courage? Drop a comment and let me know, because these stories matter. Your story matters, and maybe by sharing them, we can help someone else find the strength to choose themselves. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories of resilience and transformation. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to choose yourself, that it's okay to walk away, that it's okay to let people face the consequences of their own actions. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and maybe even for them, is to stop enabling, stop excusing, and start living for yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And remember, you are not defined by the people who couldn't see your value. You are defined by what you do with your freedom once you finally claim it. Make it count.